Did you know Ruth was quoting Boaz's own words back at him when she proposed? Go to Ruth chapter 2, verse 12. Boaz blesses Ruth and says, "May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." The Hebrew word there for wings is kanaf. Now go one chapter forward, Ruth 3, verse 9. Ruth approaches Boaz on the threshing floor and says, "Spread your wing over your servant." Same word, kanaf. She wasn't improvising. She wasn't being bold out of nowhere. She took the exact blessing Boaz spoke over her and handed it back to him. She was asking him to become what he had prayed for. That is not a coincidence. That is one of the most precise moments in all of Scripture. But most English translations use different words in each verse, and just like that, the connection disappears. The original audience would have heard it instantly, which is why you have to read it for yourself. Because some things only reveal themselves when you slow down and look. Did you know that one of the most answered prayers in the Bible may have set something terrible in motion? In 2 Kings chapter 20, King Hezekiah is told he is going to die. He turns his face to the wall, weeps, and prays, and God hears him. "I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. Behold, I will heal you." 2 Kings 20, verse 5. God adds 15 years to his life. Beautiful, faithful, answered. But then read the very next chapter. Manasseh becomes king. He sacrifices children. He fills Jerusalem with innocent blood. 2 Kings 21, verses 6 and 16. The text calls him the reason Judah could not be forgiven. Now check the dates. Manasseh was born during those exact 15 years. Without the prayer, no Manasseh. The author places these two chapters side by side without a single word of explanation. No commentary, no resolution, just the facts, sitting next to each other. That tension is real, and it only appears if you keep reading. So read it for yourself. Did you know God told a prophet to name his children as a message to an entire nation? In Hosea chapter 1, God tells Hosea to marry a woman named Gomer. He already knows she will be unfaithful. But here is what most people miss entirely: the children. Their names were not just names, they were sentences. The second child was named Lo Ruhamah. It means no mercy, Hosea 1:6. The third was named Lo Ami. It means not my people, Hosea 1:9. Every neighbor who walked past Hosea's house heard those names called out loud, every single day, a living reminder of how far Israel had drifted from God. But then read chapter 2, verses 23. God flips them. Not my people becomes my people. No mercy becomes mercy. The same names, completely reversed. God did not just preach grace. He built it into a family registry. That is the entire argument of the book, hiding in what a father named his children. Read it for yourself. Hosea 1 and 2, slowly. Did you know blind Bartimaeus answered Jesus before Jesus even healed him? Here's what most people miss. Mark chapter 10, verse 50. He threw aside his cloak, jumped up, and came to Jesus. One line, easy to skip over. But that cloak was not just a piece of clothing. In ancient Judea, a beggar's cloak was his legal right to beg at the city gate. It was his only warmth, his one recognized possession. Without it, he had no place to return to, and Bartimaeus threw it away before anything happened, before the healing, before the miracle, before Jesus even asked him what he wanted. 3 verses later comes the famous question, "What do you want me to do for you?" But Bartimaeus had already answered it with his hands. He made an irreversible decision in the direction of his healing before it was real. That detail is sitting right there in the text, and you only catch it when you read it for yourself. So open it up. Slow down. The small moments are often where the real story lives. Did you know one Greek word in Luke chapter 9 might completely change how you see the transfiguration? Luke 9, verse 31 says Moses and Elijah appeared with Jesus and spoke about his coming departure. But the Greek word isn't death. It isn't departure either. It's exodon, exodus. Moses led the first exodus out of Egypt. Elijah embodied Israel's return from exile. These weren't random guests. They were the 2 men in all of Scripture most connected to God leading his people out of bondage. And they were talking to Jesus about his. Now Peter's strange reaction suddenly makes sense. He offered to build 3 tents, which sounds almost foolish until you realize he was watching 3 figures each tied to the wilderness tabernacle, standing inside the same cloud of glory that once filled it. He recognized the pattern. He just didn't fully understand what it was announcing. One word buried in one verse tells you exactly who showed up, why those 2 specifically, and what Jesus was about to complete. Read it for yourself. Luke 9, verse 31. The Word does all the work. Did you know that by the time Gideon asked for the fleece, God had already confirmed his calling 4 separate times? Read Judges chapter 6 slowly. First, an angel appeared to Gideon in person. Then fire consumed his offering supernaturally right in front of him. Then God spoke to him again that same night. And then Gideon actually obeyed, tearing down the altar of Baal before the whole town. 4 confirmations. Real ones. Undeniable ones. And then he asked for the fleece. If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. Judges 6:36, 3:7, God answered. Then Gideon asked again, but reversed. Wet ground, dry fleece this time. God answered again. No rebuke, no frustration, just patience. Here is what gets missed. The fleece is not a picture of bold faith stepping forward. It is a picture of God's patience with a man who kept needing more. And somehow that tells you even more about who God is. Read it for yourself. Judges chapter 6, the whole thing. Did you know Matthew opens his entire gospel with a list most people skip and hides his biggest argument inside it? Matthew chapter 1, the genealogy of Jesus. Jewish readers in that time understood genealogies as legitimacy statements. This is who you come from. This is why you matter. So look at who Matthew chose to name. Tamar. She posed as a prostitute to secure what was rightfully hers. Genesis 38. Rahab. An actual prostitute. A Canaanite. A Gentile outsider. Joshua 2. Ruth. A Moabite woman. Another outsider. Someone the law specifically excluded from the assembly of Israel. Ruth 1. Bathsheba. Named only as the wife of Uriah. A scandal attached to a king's worst moment. 2 Samuel 11. 4 women. Each one carrying exactly the kind of story that should have disqualified them from a respectable lineage. And Matthew put them all in the first 17 verses. He wasn't hiding it. He was making a point. The Messiah's line was built through the people the world said shouldn't be there. Read it for yourself. Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 17. The list you skip might be the whole sermon. Did you know Solomon didn't just drift into disobedience? He walked through it like a checklist. 1 Kings chapter 11 lists the nations his wives came from. Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, Hittites. It sounds like a vague reference to foreign influence, until you open Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 4. There, God names those exact nations, one by one, and gives a direct command not to marry from among them, not as a general warning, by name, each one. Now go back to 1 Kings. Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, appears to have moved through that list with precision, one alliance at a time, one forbidden nation at a time, not by accident, not slowly losing his way, methodically. And here's the thing. You only see this when you refuse to treat Kings and Deuteronomy as separate books. The Bible rewards the reader who moves between its pages. So read it for yourself. Because sometimes the most sobering detail is hiding in plain sight, right between 2 chapters most people never connect.